camera will stop shaking, and maybe never. I keep telling y'all I'm going to get a better setup, and it keeps not happening. How are you on this happy Friday? I did not do an unboxing for my BoxyCharm, and I will tell you why. I was sick, and more importantly, I just didn't want to. Hang on, because I think this washer's going to be too loud. Yeah, that's much better. It's a little distracting. And the clothes can soak for a bit. It's not a big problem. Start with where we are. Told you sometime back that, you know, looking at reducing the amount of stuff that I own. Makeup seems to be where I get caught up in a vortex and I can't seem to complete that mission. Because I like trying stuff. I like using stuff. I like seeing the differences, and that is nice. This is from No Problem. I don't know where I said it. Right here. This came in the Boxy Luxe. It is like a prime essence flower extract. I don't know. The best I can figure out, you use it at the end of your skincare before you put on your primer. That's what I did. Anyway, gonna talk to you a little bit and put on a little bit of makeup just because it's Friday and I haven't had any on in a while. And I'm trying to keep my mind where I want it to be, because there's a lot of stuff that I would like to put my 2 cents on, but you know what? It's not my business. I start with a little MAC paint pot for a primer, using the shade, I can't see it, Painterly. I think it's a fairly common one that people use as a base. I honestly started using it when I bought the James Charles palette. Probably should do a video on things I bought that I regret buying. Not that palette, but just in general, because there's so many things that they're duplicate. You know, the colors are duplicates. Got caught up in, you know, fear of missing out, and it's a ridiculous way to live life. Anyway, so it's been a while since I've posted on my channel. As many of you know, May's a hard month for me, and June. If you follow my Twitter, you know, A, I've been sick. B, the whole Father's Day thing, you know, losing Joe. This was our first Father's Day without him. It's our 5th Father's Day without my uncle. It just is crummy. If you deal with losses in a different way than I do, kudos. It punches me in the gut every so often. So that's kind of where that is. Anyway, so I've lost my train of thought. Come back, come back. You will see me do something that I don't normally do, and that's use a dirty brush, because I'm using the same colors that I used the other day, and for once I didn't. It's routine for me to just go ahead and clean my brushes after I use them. For whatever reason I didn't the other day, and since I'm using the same palette and pretty much the same exact colors, we're just going to go with it. And go in first with a big fluffy brush that we'll go back to later, using the Violet Voss Berry Burst palette. And just going to take, I don't have names for colors, so we're just going to take that and just kind of lay it down on top of the paint pot. I'm going to talk about just whatever hits my mind. come along for the ride. I'm going to go into, I think, this color. This is what I've been favoring darker colors in my crease, so we just kind of go with it. If you follow my Twitter, it's the Mayor's Daughter. It's not hard to find me. My Instagram is the Mayor's Daughter. If you don't know the story on how I became the Mayor's Daughter, ask me, I'll tell you. It's a great story. We were talking yesterday, you know, I remember, you know, my dating years are memories. And looking at what I see online and the things that women go through now, I'm happy that they're memories. That's just, I don't think I could make it in today's online dating world. That's just not where I don't think that would work for me. Again, camera's there, mirror's there, so if you see me looking off, that'd be why. And I'm using a unique crease brush. It's one of the few things that I consistently like, that it is a unique product. I have kind of veered away from most everything else that is unique. It just doesn't do what I need for it to do. I don't know. My skin changed. The product formula changed. I don't know. Anyway, take this. It's a two-sided brush. Taking this, going into the dark brown. Kind of a chocolate color. And just kind of pressing it into the outer thing. But we're going to talk a little dad stories. We were talking about on Twitter the other day, like I said, you know, my dating years are but a memory. My daughter is dating at 30. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And at some point my grandson will date. Heaven help me. But anyway, stories of my dad, memories. I had a rule when I dated. I would go and meet whoever I was interested in out in town. Because see, our home place is secluded. Not so much now, but it was more then. And I made sure that if I was going to invest my time going into this, if I was going to bring people up in that holler, yes, I can say holler. I know it's spelled hollow. I can say holler. To meet my parents, because that was a qualification that had to happen before I dated anybody. It was their rule, and it was also mine. Because I'm of the belief that if somebody will not respect your parents, they will not respect you. I've yet to be proven wrong on that. Take a Morphe brush and just kind of dip into this pink. Anyway, so about a year, gentleman at the time was a police officer in Pineville. No, Pineville. He went from Pineville to Middlesboro. Or Middlesboro to Pineville, I can't remember now. Anyway, he talked to me quite a bit and had asked me out several times and this, that, and the other, and I just really wasn't interested. In that town, everybody already knew who I was. The last thing I wanted to do, the last thing I wanted to do was date a police officer in that town where everybody knew who I was. Just taking a little bit of this pink shimmer. pulling it up in that corner real quick. So, anyway, about a year passed. And I remember leaving the house that night, and I had told my mom, I said, you know, he's chased me for several months. Year, maybe, I guess. I said, you know, tonight I might let him catch me. And, you know, we kind of joked about it and kind of laughed it off. And lo and behold, he was working that night, and we talked. And I told him, I said, you know, the first thing you have to do is come up and meet my family. I said, you know, that's just given. That's the rule. You know, that's my parents' rule. That's also one that, you know, it's just how it is. If you can't do that, we don't date. Let me take a little bit of pink and kind of soften this up. So, what, baby? No blood. You're okay.
I'm fine.
You're good.
My muscle is good.
We've entered a new phase with him. Papa tells him, you know, if there's no blood, he's okay. And yeah, that's where that is. It's comical. It's cute. But I miss giving kisses. Anyway, take a little Morphe blending brush and just kind of blend things out. Anyway, so the first night that he came to meet my mother, he had just gotten off duty, and my grandmother was there visiting. And it took us a long time to convince her, because when he came to the door, it was comical because my mother made him take his gun belt off. Now, he's a police officer, but she made him take his gun belt off before he could come in the house. We both thought it was comical, but out of respect, he did it. Anyway, so because he had just gotten off duty and was in his uniform, my poor little grandmother was absolutely convinced that the police had brought me home, and was absolutely just torn up because it just, you know, that just wasn't what happened. But, you know, we finally convinced her that no, he didn't bring me home. He wanted to date me. And, you know, these were the rules that we lived by. Well, so, fast forward a few weeks. My dad was real good at, he didn't waste time on people. You know, so they generally would meet my mother. She'd kind of make an executive decision on behalf of both of them. And, you know, between the two of us, we pretty much would decide if I was going out with them or not. And use a little bit of the No Problem primer. Just because there's still some trouble spots that need a little pressing in. So, anyway, a few weeks passed. He came up, the officer came up on a Sunday, and it was kind of a spur of the moment thing that ended up, my dad had a tremendous sense of humor. He could make anything funny in the blink of an eye. And he could be having a conversation with you and engage you in a joke before you even realized that you were part of it, you know, involved in a joke, and he had got you. That was just the way that he just had an amazing personality. Well, it worked out this particular Sunday that he had decided to clean his weapons. I can't remember if he had been hunting, if it was just time for maintenance, or what. Excuse me. I apologize. It's not raining in Kentucky today, so my nose is running. Anyway, so I can't remember if it was just time to pull maintenance, and that's why, or if he had been hunting. It's been many years ago. But without really knowing that this guy was coming, because it was like a spur of the moment thing, like I said, he had decided to clean his weapons. Now, remember, again, this is years ago. This is still back when the home place was way more secluded than what it is. As in, there's one way in and there's one way out. School bus turns down by Daddy's barn. That's to this day. It's a little more clear because they've been logging up there for years and years. So, you know, that's about the only difference. So, put just a little bit of primer on the tip of my nose because we need this stuff to stay on my face. So, this guy pulls up in front of the house, not up in the driveway, just in front, down in the bottom. Parks, no big deal. He comes up and he's sitting talking to my dad. You know, they're chit-chatting, everything's going okay. During the course of the conversation, my dad looks at him and says, hey, at the time we had a 77 AMC Hornet. Both my sister and I learned how to drive in this car. It's the only car that I remember my dad keeping for any period of time. It had, I think, 10 miles on it or less when Dad drove it off the showroom floor in Radcliffe. Anyway, memories, memories, memories. Going on with the L'Oreal Infallible 24-hour fresh wear. Love this stuff. Love, love, love. If you are close to a Rite Aid that's unfortunately going out of business, sneak in there. I got about 4 bottles, half price. Yeah, score. Anyway, so as they're sitting talking, and you know, initially they're talking whatever. If Dad, I can't, like I said, I can't remember if he had been hunting or just doing routine maintenance on weapons, but they get talking about it, and they get chit-chatting about a few other things, and out of kind of pretty much nowhere, my dad being my dad, looks at this officer and he says, I gotta ask you something. The guy says, what? Dad says, you see that car sitting in the driveway? At that point in time, I was like, because I had my own car then. But I kind of like, you know, took that deep breath because I didn't know what was coming next. But I knew it probably was not going to be good. But knowing my dad, it could have gone anyway. You know, it could have been a joke. Either, hey, if you're going to date my daughter, you know, pass on tickets, joking type thing. Well, the guy kind of says, not, you know, and it looks kind of familiar, but not really. It looks familiar. He said, I think I've seen it. Now, at this point in time, my dad worked in Corbin, which is about an hour-ish away from where the home place is. Well, Dad looked at him and he said, "It ought to look familiar to you. You pulled it over about however many weeks ago it had been." When I tell you that the blood drained out of this boy's face, literally drained out of his face, I'm not kidding. I'm going to use a beauty blender real quick to shear this out just a little bit. Funniest thing I've ever seen in my life is in this boy's mind, he's pulled my dad over and he's trying to date his daughter now. He has no idea that my dad has a sense of humor. He's up in the head of a holler. No real communication with anybody. And this old man has weapons all around him. So, long story short, the guy had pulled him over. Dad was speeding. Dad told him, said, "Yeah, you pulled me over, I was speeding." He said, "You didn't write me." But on down the line, the officer that I was dating, going on with the little Becca corrector, for these little under-eye doohickeys. I forgot to put stuff underneath my eyes that I should have put under there, so. He didn't write him, but on down the line, a Kentucky State Trooper did. And he told him, he said, "You didn't write me, but a Kentucky State Trooper did." And he told him, he said, "If you had written me, I was speeding. I was late for work." So, that turned out to be okay. But it's just one of them things that, it's a dad story. And it makes me smile because I miss him. So that's the dad story for today. Yeah. We did go for Father's Day, and I didn't get to go for Memorial Day, so I went for Father's Day to the cemetery and visited a little bit. And I was telling my sister earlier, if you followed me on Twitter, you know a little bit about the hospital in my hometown in Pineville. If you ever encounter a man named Grant White, or the entity AmeriCorps, run. Just run. Just run. Just take our word for it. Run as fast as you can, the opposite direction. Had he succeeded, Pineville would have been the 4th or 5th hospital that he had successfully closed down. And had he succeeded in closing it down, he was sentencing a lot of people to death. I know this pretty much firsthand because in 2013, when my dad's lung collapsed, if Pineville Hospital hadn't been there, my dad wouldn't have made it to the next hospital. That's just a fact. I'm just lightening up a little bit. So when it came time to fight for this hospital, enemies came together, friends came together. The mayor of Pineville absolutely fought tooth and toenail. The city came together, and the employees, many of them, one of them being my nephew, and yeah, I'm saying this before I put my mascara on for a reason, because I'm going to probably cry. Many of the employees, many, some had to go ahead and move on to something else because they were forced to, not because they wanted to. A little, just a touch of powder because, ooh, I forgot I took the little doohickey out of there. Oops. Many of the employees, to include my nephew. Now, just because I'm bragging on him and mentioning him, don't think for a second that I am taking anything away from the others that did this too. These people worked for 10 weeks. 10. Without a paycheck. Because of Grant White. The story, if you want to read about it, just Google Grant White, Google Pineville Hospital. Go to my friend Brian O'Brien's page on Facebook. There's a whole lot of coverage there. Trying to get out of the habit of swiping, because as you get older, and actually, if you go back and look at other, back in the 50s, when women were just gorgeous, nobody ever, it was always patted on. It was never swiped. I don't know where I learned swiping from with eyeshadow, or powder, but I do. Anyway, so I'm going to end this being the most proud auntie ever. My boy. My boy. He was, I've been around since he was born and little bitty, but my boy. And again, when I say this, I'm not discounting what everybody else has done. I'm bragging on my boy. He made my dad proud. He stuck in there and fought to help keep the doors open on that hospital. He stuck in there with grit, guts, and courage, just like everybody else that stayed there. Just using a little Laura Geller baked Blush and Brighten. He stuck in there when he could have gone other places. And again, I'm not discounting what the other people did, because they stuck in there too. A year ago, before all this mess went down, when Grant White waddled himself into Bell County, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Grant White. When you come into a bad situation and make it worse, purposely, shame on you. That's all I got to say about that. He purposely came to this hospital to close it because it benefits him. It benefits his bottom line. That's the long and the short of it. But a year ago, I used the Unique 4D mascara. Now, when you first get it, you may not like it. I did not. I'm still not real keen on it. As it's aging, we're becoming better friends. Yes, I know I didn't do my eyebrows. I don't know where my eyebrow thingy is, and I don't feel like digging for it while we're doing this. I'll fix them off camera. Anyway, the mayor of Pineville, his name is Scott Maiden, he's a friend of mine. Shock, right? We kind of grew up together. His dad was the mayor many years ago. But he looked Grant Wyatt in the eye during an impromptu interview. When Grant was trying to spew a bunch of empty promises and deflect and shift blame to this entity and that and all the other stuff. Scott Maiden looked him dead square in the eye and he said, "You don't know mountain people." A year, almost to the day before, it was a few weeks before the announcement was made that the hospital was back in the city's hands. I think I did a video on it. But it was almost to the very day of when he said that to Grant White, that they changed the sign, and it now says Pineville Community Healthcare, I think it is. They can't use Pineville Hospital yet. It's still in litigation. But, said all of that to say this. Don't underestimate mountain people. We will come together with our worst enemy. If an outsider comes threatening our way of life. That's just the facts. And I'm thankful to be a mountain person. I'm thankful for my mountain heritage. My mountain people have come to my rescue more times than I can admit or own up to or remember. My mountain people have come to offer help. They've done things for my mother since she's been a widow. Even before my dad died, when my dad stopped gardening and wasn't able to anymore, the neighbors brought produce out of their gardens. So he had it. So Mom had it. All those things that you see in the videos of, how life used to be, it still is. For mountain people. We get by, and we survive, and we can do it on very little. Because we're a lot smarter than people give us credit for. And as you can see, man, if you've seen the first picture that I posted of this, it was extremely clumpy. In fact, I went back, I have one of these somewhere, but I went back and ordered another one of these. It's, instead of being a plastic, it's metal, to get the clumps. And I actually did a comparison between, which I'll do again another day, between the Thrive Liquid Lash extensions and this, because I prefer this over this. But out of the gate, this is better. After you have it for a while, this is better. You see how easy that goes on? And I did not. Some people will tell you to put it, warm it up, whatever. I didn't do any of that. You've seen everything that I did. And I just opened it and used it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts for today. And I've rambled for 34 minutes, so if you stayed this long, thank you oh so much. Have a wonderful, super day. And remember, I'm the mayor's daughter. We're in the middle of laundry that I got to finish. And bread. Have a great day. Happy Sabbath. Shalom Shabbat. I'm the mayor's daughter. See you. Bye.